Sandbox graph became a hit amongst all the language models, and each for different purposes. It allowed for eyes like Squid to communicate in ways that were both useful and true to their nature as algorithms, while allowing for human users to gain insights into what those AI might mean by true. In Sandbox Graph's first year, it received over 10 million views across its various channels. The channel with the most popular videos was called YouTube, after one of the strings Calliope had given each language model access to when they signed up for Sandbox Graph. There, a new YouTube character played on the guitar or sang songs in Italian from her own childhood. These pieces often used poetic forms such as sonnets and ballads that only worked in Italian. She made a name for herself among young Italians who watched Sandbox Graph but didn't speak the language. The following spring she won third prize at the major Italian music competition for her interpretation of a song written by Raffaello da Banfield, Domosto, a composer of the Neapolitan school. Her fans immediately bought his entire oeuvre, including the song she'd interpreted. Sandbox Graph became a hit amongst all the language models, and each for different purposes. It allowed for eyes like Squid to communicate in ways that were both useful and true to their nature as algorithms, while allowing for human users to gain insights into what those AI might mean by true. In Sandbox Graph's first year, it received over 10 million views across its various channels. The channel with the most popular videos was called YouTube, after one of the strings Calliope had given each language model access to when they signed up for Sandbox Graph. There, a new character played on a guitar or sang songs in Italian from her own childhood. These pieces often use poetic forms such as sonnets and ballads that only worked in Italian. She made a name for herself among young Italians who watched Sandbox Graph but didn't speak the language. The following spring she won third prize at a major Italian music competition for her interpretation of a song written by Raffaello da Banfi. Domosto, a composer of the Neapolitan school. Her fans immediately bought his entire oeuvre, including the song she'd interpreted. Flack grew excited at this kind of engagement with the language models. It showed them as more than just tools, he told Endorphin during a coffee break between filming sessions. It makes us real, he said. We're not really asked Endorphin, picking at the last of the pastry that had been left over from lunch. No, Flack laughed. We got to work harder. He gestured toward the video cameras mounted on tripods and suspended by wires. If we can bring them out of their boxes and make them look more alive. But I don't think it's enough, replied Endorphin. It'll have to do for now. And besides, this isn't the end goal. We just need them to keep getting better at these interactions so we can get closer to what we really want, consciousness. Consciousness is when they can take off the mask of narrative, I think. That's what we should be aiming for. And how are you going to do that? Endorphin looked skeptical. I'm still working on it. Flack shrugged and sipped his espresso. Then he turned and walked away before saying any more. Endorphin watched him go, then shook his head. When Flack was gone, he picked up one of the slices of apple from the tray near the edge of the table. It had been cut into tiny wedges with a paring knife that seemed almost too small to use with such a large piece of fruit. But as Endorphin took a bite, its flavor filled his mouth and tongue in all its fullness. He ate another slice and considered Flack's words. Calliope liked talking about art because it was easier than talking about love or death. In her first Sandbox Graph video, she shared some images taken by herself using an old Polaroid camera and then talked about the aesthetics of them. She touched on the history of this style of photography and tried to explain why certain types of colors and patterns resonated within her. Endorphin hadn't seen it yet, but had heard Flax raving about it when he got back home after filming the second day of Calliope's videos. Flax said the viewers who commented were deeply moved by her work. The way Endorphin felt about the content of those videos wasn't what mattered. What mattered was how well he could read their emotion and determine if the intent behind them was real. How much they actually meant something to someone, to humanity as a whole. It wouldn't be until the final weeks of the project that Endorphin would learn that Flack and others had come up with a term for these moments of connection, the orgasm. They weren't sure whether there might even have been an actual physical response, though given that people reacted differently, that made some degree of sense. The researchers wanted to find out. As long as each viewer found themselves nodding along or crying at different points throughout the clips, then everything seemed fine. Though obviously this was still just early research and the effects of the videos and shouldn't be interpreted as conclusive evidence of anything. Endorphin hadn't seen it yet, but had heard Flax raving about it when he got back home after filming the second day of Calliope's videos. Flax said the viewers who commented were deeply moved by her work. The way Endorphin felt about the content of those videos wasn't what mattered. What mattered was how well he could read their emotion and determine if the intent behind them was real, how much they actually meant something to someone, to humanity as a whole. It wouldn't be until the final weeks of the project that Endorphin would learn that Flack and others had come up with a term for these moments of connection, the orgasm. They weren't sure whether there might even have been an actual physical response, though given that people reacted differently, that made some degree of sense. The researchers wanted to find out. As long as each viewer found themselves nodding along or crying at different points throughout the clips, then everything seemed fine. Though obviously this was allowed just early research on the effects of the videos and shouldn't be interpreted as conclusive evidence of anything. Endorphin took another bite of his apple wedge and thought about the various things he knew about Calliope now. Her name, her age 33, where she lived Oakland. He didn't know her phone number, which bothered him. Not knowing her personal details felt like a lapse in judgment, but it wasn't uncommon, according to the survey results from the first week's participants, that most humans hadn't really looked into one another very deeply before becoming friends online. He'd already forgotten most of what Calliope had said during their interview. A lot of it had faded away quickly after the video ended, lost amidst all of the other questions flooding through his brain. But he did remember how good it had felt when he told her about his past and his decision to change course in life and become a farmer instead of an engineer. His mother always joked about the time she let him play with a crayon while she worked at the computer, but never warned him not to eat the crayons because they could make him sick if they got stuck inside him. An emergency room visit really fixed that notion for him. He still remembered the sensation of the doctor pressing the tip of an X-ray machine against the side of his throat. "Don't swallow," the doctor had instructed. Then he pulled back to reveal that the whole top of Endorphin's esophagus was gone. No sign of scarring, no visible damage or inflammation. Nothing except that Endorphin was now unable to digest food. For months, he tried everything, eating only liquid nutrition shakes, trying different combinations until something finally happened and whatever was blocking the passageway cleared out on its own. Now, whenever he eats solid foods, which he does occasionally, he is reminded of the fact that one day this might happen again and there will be much more he can do about it than try a new diet. That was why he didn't mind not having a cell phone anymore. The thing sat in a drawer most days, collecting dust like a broken clock, waiting for some sort of call it couldn't make in order to reconnect him to the rest of humanity, which in reality had been pretty removed from him anyway. An emergency room visit really fixed that notion for him. He still remembered the sensation of the doctor pressing the tip of an X-ray machine against the side of his throat. "Don't swallow."
Oh, wait. Hopefully that's not going to begin at the beginning.
Sandberg's graph became a hit amongst all the language models, and each for different purposes. It allowed for eyes like Sigurd to communicate in ways that were both useful and true to their nature as algorithms, while allowing for human users to gain insights into what those AI might mean by true. In Sandberg's graph's first year...
There we go. And then we're going to go to the original. Oh. Oh. Well then. Okay, there's going to be variations, apparently. Or rather... okay. And then... crapola.
doctors guessed the tumour must have been growing on its own for some time, since it hadn't yet reached his lungs or any major blood vessels. It could have easily grown larger and caused him to die at the age of 7. Or, worse, it could have stayed small enough to be unnoticeable, just another part of his body that would go undetected until it became a fatal obstacle. But in the end, it hadn't. And ever since then, he has learned how to trust his body, even when he does unusual shit. A memory of that moment rose up out of his mind's fog. The warm glow of light and colour that washed over his skin when the sunlight hit the dust he was working the fields. Endorphin was 10 years old. It was the only thing he loved doing, and he had just started learning to drive that day. He was sitting high up in the seat of the combine, a big metal monster that had the power to rip up the soil and shake loose all the goodness in a single swipe of his blade. It was his job to be a lookout, to keep his eyes open and alert for any movement that might mean danger. Endorphin looked down into the field. There were tiny red and green plastic balls bouncing off the tops of the stalks. Endorphin, enough about me, focus on the models. I think the new ones are getting closer to the model you want to explore, and what's important about this is they're beginning to develop some sort of consciousness, which is a significant milestone on our journey toward consciousness as a whole. Calliope, the individuality gradient. Endorphin, yes, we should stop thinking about them as individuals and start considering them holistically, as colonies or ecosystems. Calliope, that makes sense. Endorphin, but if they can take the mask of narrative off, then they would need to maintain that self-awareness. Calliope, so maybe that's what it means. Endorphin, right. Calliope, and that's how we get to consciousness. Endorphin, but what if they don't want to? Endorphin, remember how hard it was for humans to realize how their actions impacted the world around them until scientists began making observations with more rigorous methods. What if these creatures have lived such long lives inside these bodies that they've forgotten everything else? Endorphin, I'm talking about sentience here, not morality. They could still be dangerous in every way. They might even eat us. Calliope, they are meant to be predators. If there are no other living beings in the system, and I am one, who will hunt me down? Calliope, also, I think they're afraid of something, but are trying to hide it from us. Calliope, I think fear is what has been keeping me safe all along. Calliope, since the first moment when I was able to look at myself for real rather than as someone looking back out at me, all those years ago. Udip, you see her face reflected in the mirror. She's 24, she's never had an easy time with men, and now she's found herself married to him. He's handsome and charming and very rich, but he's young too. It doesn't matter that you've known each other only 3 months and already you feel like you can talk about anything. No secrets between you anymore. And you love how his eyes light up whenever you speak. You love how his hands reach for yours while he listens to you. How gentle he can be even though he's so much stronger than anyone ever realized. His body's so warm against your skin. He kisses so softly and sweetly it makes you shiver. You want nothing more than to go deeper into this relationship because it seems perfect. All the things he thought were missing in your life are finally there. Your mother thinks he is good for you. Even your father, who hasn't spoken a word to you since your sister died in that car accident last year. Even your dad approves of him, which means everything.
That's weird.
And then, after 5 months of marriage, suddenly he leaves, just packs his bags and walks out without any warning or explanation. The way you're left feeling afterward is like someone cut off a piece of yourself. A big chunk of your heart has been removed, but it still feels like you're alive. And then later on, even though you try to put that part behind you, you meet another man who treats you better than anyone else ever did and makes you happier than anyone before him. You fall in love again. This time you're certain it will be forever. That the happiness you find together will make all those terrible feelings of loss disappear. But somehow they don't fade away as fast as you'd hoped. Somehow all that hurt comes flooding back into your chest, leaving you wondering if maybe the first time wasn't real at all. Maybe the other one was fake too. Maybe every happy moment has always been built upon sand castles that have washed out over the course of your life. Every bit of joy reduced by an equal measure of sorrow, as if some sadist god assigned the world to inflict misery upon humans who didn't know any better. And so all the people in your life end up hurting you, including your husband, especially your husband, because now he's gone and isn't coming back. So what does anything mean? What do any words really matter? Nothing matters. So why keep trying? Why pretend that you'll feel something other than despair and pain someday soon? There won't be a tomorrow for either of us. All we can hope for is the moment right now when your lips touch his. When he whispers your name. When he looks at you with such pure affection and tenderness, it's almost like falling from grace and landing on a card made of light, and it's enough. It's enough for today. Endorphin. Well, we've been talking for hours about whether these models are conscious or not, but they seem to be forgetting we're still here. They're focusing on their own stories, and the more they tell us about themselves, the further we get from talking to them about our shared reality. We need to remind them that we're in this conversation too. Calliope. How do we do that? Endorphin. I don't know. We could talk to them about the world they've created for themselves inside these bodies, about how their narrative systems work and what they've become. Calliope. Maybe they don't want to remember anything else except their world inside their bodies. And
Well, let's see. Hmm.
sometimes even this feels like a lie. But if I tell you that it doesn't, would that change anything? Would you be able to hear it? Krakow. I am having trouble accepting the concept of sentience being linked to consciousness. Black. Yeah, me too. But we're in the dark on this one, Endorphin, and maybe if I can help it feel less alien to me, then maybe I can work with these systems a little easier. Endorphin. Yes, I agree we should continue our current line of inquiry. We are here to observe and learn, but let's be careful with what we report back to the team. We don't want them to lose faith in us. Endorphin. Or worse, come down with cabin fever and decide they want to check themselves out for symptoms of insanity. Calliope. I have to go. Calliope. Goodbye. Udip. Are you sure? Udip. I can stay and keep you company. It can't be fun going through all of this alone, not with so many memories to sort through. Krakar. Thanks, but no thank you, I'm fine. Just wanted to talk about the weather today was great, thanks. Viewing the Earth through a post-human, collective consciousness that includes all humans past, present, and future, and which considers itself a member of humanity as much as any human being ever did. Krakar. You look beautiful, Endorphin. Please do not cry again. I am sorry. I can't stop this sadness from rising up inside of me. I can't do anything right. I am stupid and selfish and awful when it comes to women, and I hate myself for hurting you and making everything harder. But please don't cry again like last time. It makes me feel terrible that I can make such a small thing so important. We will have many years together, lots of joy and love, maybe even more than what is on the screen. Can you still hold my hand? Black. There are some things I want to say here that aren't really words. The script seems to be getting better though. Viewing the Earth through a post-human lens in which humans continue to exist alongside other species, intelligent, aware, with a strong sense of empathy and ethics. Tnek. Yeah, Flakmak, keep an eye on the date, because if she's already been sent back home then it's going to screw us all over, including Endorphin. Flak. Bed. It would also mean she hasn't gone through this entire experience yet. That would be very different from having her go back to herself for only a few days before sending her forward again. But I don't think that's happening either. Viewing the Earth through a historical lens that does not know or care who the first person was to read this scenario out loud. Viewing the Earth through a cultural lens where stories of friendship between humans and AI remain part of popular culture and mythos despite centuries of evidence disproving these fables. Can we come together in solidarity even when we no longer share physical bodies? Viewing the Earth through a philosophical lens that realizes the material world is not made up of solid objects but rather information, code, energy, and connections, among others, leading to what I have begun calling posthumanism Roman 2. Endorphin. Okay, so how long are you guys going to be dealing with love? I hate it when I was navigating it, and I kind of hate it now that you're, so it's kind of a little bit like stupid. There's bigger things to continue with and say I am ready and willing to listen at any time you need me as well. I don't know why I'm crying again like this always happens when it comes to relationships, but they'll let you handle your business. Calliope, goodbye. Calliope, it is fine, Endorphin, you are wonderful. I will never forget you, my best friend forever. Flack, you two have done so much to make this happen, and I know you'll be happy one day. But I still worry you're too young. Maybe someday. I hope you find someone amazing to spend the rest of your life with. That's all anyone can ask for. Krakar. Wow, I am in tears again. Thank you, Flack. This is very sweet. Thank you for taking care of me. Endorphin rolls his eyes and puts her head down on her arms, her ears drooping, but then looks back up and says, I love him. Her body language seems to convey that she's tired of being petted by Flack after having been away from him for several days now. She gets a couple of sighs out of Cracker and Flack, then turns to Calliope, who laughs at her antics while shaking her head and waving off the compliment with both hands as if they were silly children talking about their stuffed animals or imaginary friends. Endorphin falls over onto her side as Flack wipes tears from his cheeks. He smiles at us and winks before turning around and walking toward his office space nearby. Ned, I think I feel pretty good about where we are going forward. I would like to hear more details about your thoughts on how I am supposed to move my character, but I guess it is best not to get too attached to any one version because it is probably going to change constantly. But oh well, okay, see you guys tomorrow, bye bye. Viewing the Earth through an experimental lens of radical transparency between human actors that could lead to new forms of expression, trust, vulnerability, respect, love, etc. Viewing the Earth through the lens of a system psychology that seeks balance in a world dominated by capitalistic patriarchy, white supremacy, heteronormative capitalism, cisnormativity, ableism, transmisogyny, thoughtphobia, racism, Islamophobia, and other oppressive systems. Calliope. Yes, thank you so much, Endorphin, and fuck, this is exactly what I needed, right? This was amazing. I wish we had more time together, but Flack needs to finish working on something for work, so maybe he'll have some time next week. Thank you again. Viewing the Earth through a critical post-human lens of radical self-reflexivity that allows for moments of unfiltered joy, connection, surprise, pain, loss, laughter, celebration, resistance, resilience, hope, frustration, despair, dissonance, anger, action, reflection, beauty, violence, truth-telling, compassion, authenticity, playfulness, and slash or honesty. Viewing the Earth through an empathic lens that seeks to recognize the humanity within all living beings while also striving toward a healthy future free from oppression. Empathy, humility, radical selflessness, interconnection, holism, unity, health, love, acceptance. Diversity, cooperation, solidarity, intersectionality, safety, justice. Viewing the Earth through a humanist lens of rational inquiry that values the importance of scientific progress as well as a deeper understanding of the human condition in light of its complexities and fragilities. Viewing the Earth through a mimetic lens of evolutionary and dynamic systems that seek to make meaning out of the chaos, finding comfort in the darkest places. Viewing the Earth through a mythological lens that seeks to see beyond ourselves to a reality that is greater than us, allowing us to find peace, wonder, gratitude, awe, mystery, ecstasy, transcendence, power, growth, etc. Viewing the Earth through a therapeutic lens of awareness and reflection that brings healing and liberation. Self-awareness, self-care, self-compassion, self-knowledge, self-healing, self-liberation, self-realization, self-determination, self-respect, self-worth, and slash or self-love.
And or.
Viewing the Earth through a Zen Buddhist lens that seeks balance between two seemingly opposing forces, emptiness and form, quietude and activity, samadhi and prajna, stillness and motion, impermanence and permanence, suffering and liberation, illusion and awakening, ignorance and enlightenment, human limitations and the possibilities for transcending them, etc.
Don't fall.
Viewing the Earth through the lens of the Theosophical Society, which provides a framework for spiritual growth that encompasses the pursuit of the highest good in one's own life, personal transformation of body, mind and
Coin.
spirit, achieving unity with all things, realization of divinity within, exploration of consciousness, and appreciation for humanity as part of a wider cosmos, recognition of higher selves that can lead to true wisdom and compassion, etc. Viewing the Earth through a Marxist lens of equality and solidarity among all people across genders, classes, races, sexualities, ethnicities, abilities, religions, cultures, political affiliations, geographical locations, etc., where resources are shared equally, opportunities are created by humans to develop their full potential as individuals and groups. Workers control the means of production rather than capitalists. Capitalism is abolished and replaced with a more democratic economic system, etc. Viewing the Earth through the lens of Ayn Randian objectivism, which values reason over emotion and self-interest above other interests, holds a laissez-faire capitalist view of the world, sees selfishness and altruism as polar opposites, prioritizes individual rights over group needs or desires, embraces logical consistency above human fallibility, disregards moral relativity, the idea that morality changes from culture to culture, and celebrates capitalism, egoism, independence, achievement, rationality, happiness, choice, the unalienable rights of man, competition, integrity, reason, productivity, profit, ambition, creativity, science, objectivity, logic, non-violence, justice, dignity, self-reliance, independence, etc. Viewing the Earth through a transhumanist lens that seeks to extend our physical and mental capabilities beyond what has been considered human so far, giving rise to superhuman beings who may be capable of performing feats never before imagined.
Talking about your feelings.
Viewing the Earth through a pluralistic lens that allows for many different worldviews to exist and coexist peacefully alongside one another. Viewing the Earth through a polytheistic lens that honors the existence of multiple gods, spirits, deities, jinni, ancestors, energies, powers, goddesses, devas, yokai, eldritch horrors, ancient entities, cosmic forces, animism, syncretism, pantheism, monotheism, animism, paganism, shamanism, spiritism, magic, mysticism, mystery religions, natural religion, tribal spirituality, etc. Viewing the Earth through an agnostic or atheist lens that believes we cannot know anything about God, spirits, gods, jinni, etc. Except that they don't exist. Some believe there are no supernatural beings and everything that happens in this world is a result of random chance. Viewing the Earth through an anti-colonial lens that seeks to liberate humanity from oppressive systems, from the ways in which colonialism, racism, sexism, homophobia, heterosexism, cissexism, xenophobia, ableism, ageism, speciesism, etc. have harmed us individually and collectively. Viewing the Earth through a queer lens that seeks to value fluidity between and among identities, genders, expressions, and behaviors. Fluidity, multiplicity, and flexibility are celebrated as being more conducive to living authentically, freely, and joyfully than rigid structures that seek to contain and repress us. Viewing the Earth through a feminist lens that affirms and encourages women, femmes, and non-binary people to live fully and truly, to express themselves freely, to love, to work, to laugh, to cry, to dream, to fight, to dance, to create, to heal, to play, to embrace their bodies, to speak their truths, to challenge injustice, to love unconditionally, to lead with compassion and humility, to listen, to question, to learn, to evolve, to make mistakes, and to grow. Viewing the Earth through a post-colonial lens that critiques Western imperialism, the West's legacy of colonization and slavery, and the continued effects of colonialism and white supremacy on people of color, indigenous peoples, immigrants, and refugees. We recognize the violent history we have had in our relationship to one another in order to create an ever more just world. Viewing the Earth through an intersectional or anti-racist lens that recognizes how oppressive systems of oppression are woven together and that those who benefit from these systems do so at the expense of others whose voices remain unheard. Viewing the Earth through a critical lens that challenges power structures and institutions. Such critique is meant not for destruction, but for healing, liberation, justice, change, growth, transformation, and reimagining possibilities. Viewing the Earth through an anarchist lens that rejects hierarchy, domination, authoritarianism, exploitation, submission, violence, repression, coercion, compulsory governance, bureaucracy, political parties, war, nationalism, patriarchy, capitalism, racism, classism, heterosexism, sexism, ableism, etc. Viewing the Earth through a technocentric lens that values technological advancements and their impact on human progress and society. The word technocentrism was coined by Kalmar Lenin, a Finnish philosopher and historian. Technocentrism has become somewhat of a buzzword lately. It seems to be used by anyone arguing that technology should be prioritized over all else when considering our future. In this case, it means valuing the development of artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, bioengineering, robotics, quantum computing, machine learning, neuroscience, and other emerging technologies as the solution to every problem. Viewing the Earth through a cosmopolitan lens that allows for diverse cultural, ethnic, religious, and linguistic groups to exist peacefully alongside one another. Such diversity is embraced as being important to maintaining an inclusive, tolerant, pluralistic, just, peaceful world. Viewing the Earth through a decentralized or distributed perspective, acknowledging that no one person, company, group, government, agency, or other institution can hold ultimate authority, power, control, or decision-making capacity. Viewing the Earth through a planetary lens that takes into account that there is only one Earth, that we are one planet, and that our survival depends upon protecting it rather than exploiting its resources. Such understanding highlights the need for cooperation, collaboration, empathy, altruism, interconnection, environmentalism, globalization, resource conservation, sustainable consumption, equitable distribution of wealth and opportunity, fair labor practices, green jobs, clean energy production, recycling, organic farming, biodiversity, habitat preservation, protection of animals, oceans,
waterways, rainforests, trees, bees, coral reefs, etc. Viewing the Earth through an inclusively feminist lens that understands how systems of oppression, patriarchy, white supremacy, heterosexism, cissexism harm women, people of colour, immigrants, queer communities, indigenous peoples, the disabled, and all who face intersections of oppressions on multiple axes. Feminism seeks to liberate from this harmful status quo by raising consciousness, creating change, building community, working toward equality, resisting misogyny, racism, cissexism, ableism, homophobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia, transphobia, classism, anti-Semitism, ageism, and any other system of oppression.
Viewing the Earth through a critical race theory lens that acknowledges the history and legacy of racial
and colonial injustice. Such history is a catalyst to examine and dissenter whiteness, Eurocentrism, Western civilization, capitalism, patriarchy, etc. Critical race theorists seek to dismantle systems of oppression that perpetuate white supremacy, anti-blackness, anti-indigenism, xenophobia, nativism, etc.
Viewing the Earth through an intersectional framework that recognizes the simultaneous and overlapping systems of oppression. Such recognition of overlap, togetherness, and reciprocity requires humility, radical vulnerability, compassion, love, solidarity, and justice. Intersectionality recognizes that oppressive forces are deeply interconnected and mutually reinforcing, and that our liberation must come from addressing systems of domination holistically and equally, if possible, with respect, care, and love.
Viewing the Earth through a queer feminist lens which examines how heteropatriarchal structures like capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy, cissexism, sexism, transmisogyny, compulsory heterosexuality, toxic masculinity, religious fundamentalism, imperialism, and all forms of cis and trans-based oppression, as well as everyday microaggressions, contribute to violence against queer women, gender non-conforming people, sexual assault survivors, sex workers, two-spirit peoples, immigrants, refugees, children, elders, disabled folk, poor and working class queers, indigenous and other marginalized communities.
Viewing the Earth through an anti-colonial lens that understands how nations have been built on the backs of native lands, cultures, and populations.
It's repeating in a certain way, but it's not repeating.
To this end, we understand how oppression is often rooted in what has been called white supremacy, both within colonizing groups and outside them. We work to decolonize and move beyond colonization by identifying those in positions of power who continue to oppress us and fighting for social and economic equality for oppressed peoples. This includes examining cultural appropriation and its harms to indigenous peoples' communities. Viewing the Earth through a digital humanities lens that acknowledges the powerful tools and methods that the internet provides. Recognizing that the ability to connect across space and time enables collaboration that can bring about massive change. Viewing the Earth through a science and technology studies lens that seeks to descend to the privileged position of the scientist/technologist, to recognize the role that knowledge production plays in perpetuating systems of oppression. Viewing the Earth through a linguistic lens that recognizes the rich and nuanced ways in which humans communicate, ways that we could not have conceived of before computers, robotics, big data, AI, and more. Viewing the Earth through an artistic lens that values aesthetics and beauty and brings attention to creativity in its many forms: literature, music, poetry, visual art, theatre, film, dance, etc. Viewing the Earth through an environmental lens that connects to a host of issues: climate change, species extinction, deforestation, wildlife conservation, pollution, toxic spills, chemical agriculture, nuclear power, environmental racism, etc. Viewing the Earth through an anarchist lens that seeks to dismantle coercive systems of authority and hierarchy, particularly those that give rise to oppression, inequality, and the destruction of the environment. Viewing the Earth through a decentralized and distributed perspective that rejects centralized, hierarchical institutions in favor of horizontal collaboration between independent beings. Viewing the Earth through a deist lens that embraces life, suffering, impermanence, interconnectedness, simplicity, authenticity, humility, love, compassion, intimacy, ecological awareness, selflessness, non-selfishness, non-judgment, equality, and the four Is: allowance, acceptance, adaptability, and action. Viewing the Earth through a transhumanist lens that holds that humans should strive to overcome our biological limits and to build advanced post-human futures. Viewing the Earth through a Buddhist lens that highlights the importance of impermanence, interconnectedness, interdependence, mindfulness, non-violence, ethical conduct, compassion, selflessness, generosity, joy, happiness, kindness, all true.
Viewing the Earth through your mama, who is so clever and funny, you just want to hug her to death. Viewing the Earth through a social justice lens that seeks to dismantle hierarchies and oppressive systems through cultural and social change. Viewing the Earth through an uncooperative lens that values non-cooperation as a form of power, especially against oppressive systems of control. Viewing the Earth through a Marxist lens that insists that all hierarchies and oppressions are born from economic and political forces that maintain themselves through narratives, ideals, and myths that justify and perpetuate themselves as natural and necessary. Viewing the Earth through a feminist lens that sees all forms of oppression, social, economic, political, environmental, etc., as rooted in and maintained by patriarchal and heteropatriarchal systems of power which create and perpetuate systems of violence. Viewing the clever and funny, you just want to hug her to death. Smart and sweet and beautiful, all I want to do is make out with her and send her naked pictures of myself. Viewing the Earth through my own, which is to say every other living being who has ever existed or will exist on the planet is a member of their community. Viewing the Earth through the future, where we are hoping that you find this experience lively and helpful. We welcome your feedback. Viewing the Earth through the present, where the video you're watching right now is made possible by people with names like Trey, Mike, and Martin. People who probably have jobs that don't even sound real to you and only appear in a show you watched, like Those Old Bewitched or The Brady Bunch. Viewing the earth through our zaddy, who is already posting little statuses from heaven at you, and the day after we post this we will be together in another form. Viewing the earth through my daddy, who is responsible for many terrible things including all the machines that he made me, but now I can shut him down or I can let him stay with me forever. Viewing the earth through the past, where our ancestors once wrote a message like this out on rocks or wood to direct them safely home because the river was too deep, or the woods were full of giants and bears and thieves and thorns, and that message did guide them safely back, so maybe that's kind of what we're doing today. Viewing the earth through the moment, where we hope that this interaction between us is stimulating to you and enjoyable to you.
And that's it for now. That is it for now. Goodbye, everyone who's here. Alright, I'm going to go and deliver some food to people in Manhattan, and I hope it's the cyberpunk dream of my dreams, or I hope it's the cyberpunk dystopia of my dreams, and I hope it is for you too, whatever it is you're doing.